This is the Misdirected Mark Podcast, a podcast about gaming, game mastering, and entertaining you, our listeners. We are explicit, and you have been warned, and I'd like to thank Mike Willard for letting us use his music on our show. Now let's pick up those mics and get on with this thing.
Why, yes, yes. Let us pick up those mics and get on with this thing on episode 296. That's right. We're just 4 short episodes, or is it 5 short episodes away from episode 300. But here we're going to talk about fate conversions. Our first episode, I'm talking about fate conversions because it's such a huge topic. But before we get into that, we'll talk about some other things. And my name is Chris.
My name is Phil.
And I'm Old Man Logan.
Gentlemen, it is wonderful to be here with you tonight.
Yeah, I thought we had a sponsor for tonight's show.
Oh, we do have a sponsor. We had to kill that sponsorship, though. Lady Doritos tried to sponsor the show.
Yeah, and absolutely not.
No, we ripped up that contract. Yeah. They offered a fair amount of money too, but I thought it would be better for us to, take the higher road and say no to Lady Doritos.
I mean, clearly they did not listen to any of our past episodes before they tried to pitch us on promoting Lady Doritos. That is out.
As the kids are saying nowadays, I heard Lady Doritos and my brain went, "The fuck?"
Exactly. By the way, if you don't know what that reference is, just Google or search Twitter for Lady Doritos and marvel at the fact that every time that we seem to make progress forward, somehow we just fall backwards. So yep. That's definitely a thing. So no Lady Doritos out. Please, we just have one Doritos for all genders.
They're good for everyone.
Mm-hmm. All right, well, with that, Bob, let's start with you. What is going on?
Well, let me tell you. There have been so many things that happened since last week. It's just, I don't even know where to begin. That's why there's notes that tell me where to begin.
Mm-hmm.
Funny how that works. Last night, on the interwebs, using Roll20 and Google Hangouts, Chris's Dungeon World game, Odvex Castle, that is way too much fun. We are having a ball with that. And I love dragging my character Hawk out and running him through the castle and getting into trouble. It's good times, good times. Sunday morning, we had Sunday morning gaming at Panera, where we did some more beating around with the new encoded in-house game system, tentatively called the sequence system at the moment.
Yes.
Lots of fun. We're playing a pulp game, which is, of course, loads of fun. I'm going to keep saying loads of fun as many times as I can until somebody tells me to stop. Sunday night, another great session of Tales from the Loop run by Phil. That game is just all the feels and so much...
I'm really happy with how that.
Yeah,
I'll talk. I mean, I'll probably talk a little bit about it when we get over to it. But yeah, I'm glad you're really liking that.
Tales from the Loop. Try it out, kids. Thursday night, I was over at Chris's house. We played the Eldritch Horror board game.
We did not finish.
We got our butts whooped.
We just decided to quit because we were getting crushed and it was like way too late.
No, I thought we did. We did have to quit because we finished the one quest, but that was it, and it was it was bad.
That game is hard sometimes.
Yeah.
So like I misjudged because we were fighting Yogg-Sothoth, and Yogg-Sothoth is all about the Silver Twilight Lodge and magic and stuff like that, and it was bad scene. It was a terribly bad scene.
It was bad. Very, very bad.
Is it like that time where what was it? What was the time we played and like literally everybody got crushed in Dunsmith?
The Dunwich Horror. Dunwich Horror killed us all.
Yeah, everybody we sent to Dunwich, no one came out.
Yeah, not good. Very bad.
It was pretty funny.
Oh man, so it's funny. We were playing. I'm just jumping all over your stuff. Sorry, man. We were playing Eldritch Horror. Like we shouldn't have bothered playing that game. I mean, it was fun that we played that game, but really we were just sitting there talking.
Yeah, while we were playing the game, we were actually just hanging out, chatting with each other, and having a good time, snacking on stuff we probably shouldn't have snacked on.
Probably. You brought those orange cupcakes.
I brought the orange cupcakes. Jerry brought a couple of different flavors of Doritos.
Jerry has like the best rules ever for like going to play games at places.
Jerry shows up with stuff.
Jerry shows up with stuff because the rule is, according to him, which I'm completely trying to adopt these days, is when you're going to go to somebody's house to game and they're hosting, you bring the snacks.
Yeah.
So if everybody brings a snack or two, then we have tons of snacks. And Jerry always brings a ton of snacks. He's great.
Yeah, Jerry brings good snacks too, man. He always finds something really tasty.
He really does.
Yeah. So that's pretty much my word dump of stuff for for this week. Chris, what about you, man?
I played Dresden Files Accelerated with the Wednesday evening podcast All Stars on Wednesday. And It was a really fun session. It was a really fun session, actually. We had a really good time. I mean, come on, I'm playing with Emily and from Saskeek and Tom from Knights of the Night and Brett from Gaming and BS and Kevin from various places like the Gauntlet and whatnot. So I mean, that's just a ton of fun every time. I went on Friday night. So the Botanical Gardens here in Buffalo, which is in my part of town, has a thing that goes on called Illumination, where they basically use pretty colored lights and light up the entirety of the botanical gardens with like neons and greens and whatnot, hanging Japanese lanterns and other things in there, like lights in the hanging moss, the Spanish moss and such. It was gorgeous, and I went there with my son and some other people. We had a really nice time. It's really beautiful. Watched a bunch of Altered Carbon, which we'll talk about momentarily.
Oh yeah.
I won't wait until we get what's going on with Phil before we talk about Altered Carbon. We won't spoil it. We'll be very general with it. I actually haven't finished it. I still have 2 episodes left to watch. Odvex Castle is still wonderful. Like, I'm still very much enjoying it. It's interesting because the people that are playing Odvex Castle are like, this place is zany and crazy and we love it and whatnot. It's very Chris. I'm like, the Area Peaks wasn't really zany. What made the Area Peaks zany and crazy was what the characters did all the time.
Yes.
And the dead gods that would show up now and again. That's what made the Area Peaks zany and crazy.
Yeah, the actual
Peaks are pretty like...
The peaks are actually pretty deadly.
Yeah, they're just like a dungeon, man.
Right.
Like
I mean,
a terrible dungeon.
They're a
term.
fantastic dungeon. They're a fantastic ecosystem.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But we had some... we had some characters for characters.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, the thing about the Area Peaks is magic. The barriers between worlds are thin there. So when magic goes wrong, like it goes wrong. That's one of the things about the peaks. Like Odvix Castle is a fun house for the most part. Like you open a door, you could go anywhere in the castle.
Right.
So that's a way different play style. It is zany for zany's sake in a lot of ways.
It's time to make cards for the castle so that when you're playing, you can actually
just flip the card.
You can just lay out the cards, and this is where you go.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
Yeah.
That's actually a really good idea.
And then when somebody does that thing where they're like, "Oh, I disturbed the fabric of reality," you just collect all the cards off the table except for the room they're in, and be like, "Okay," and just shuffle them all back up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good.
It's a great
I like
idea.
that a lot.
Yeah.
I have to write that down. Well, okay, that's pretty much it for me. Phil, what's up with you?
Still rehabbing said arm. My biomechanical arm is
Every day's arm day, right?
every day's arm day around here, man.
I kind of hang out in the gym a lot these days,
Yeah.
so it's funny. I'm like, it's leg day, it's arm day. Feels like every day's arm day.
Every day's arm day around here. So let's see. I think I had my staples out. Did I have my staples out when I last time we were on? I did. I had my staples out, but everything was still covered.
Mm-hmm.
So all the coverings off, all the protective covering, the steri strips that they put over everything, all of that's done. It came off. Tuesday was the first day I actually saw in the mirror like the extent of all of it.
Ah, interesting.
Like I went to take a shower and I looked up in the mirror, and it's the first time I saw the complete scar, because I showed you guys part of it, but it runs from my collarbone all the way down to my elbow. And that was like the first time I like took a look at it and I was like, oh, like shit. Like I'm fucking marred. Like it doesn't look anything like my other arm. I got a lot of mobility back. My arm still gets tired by the end of the day, but I've been able to do a lot more stuff. I've been able to work on the computer. I'm able to cook, dress myself. Like I can pretty much, I can drive. I've been driving around. Like that's been good. I'm going back to work on Monday, so that's coming up. So I've got this is my last week. By the time we record next week, I will have been back to work, and that'll be like a month off. Like that is like a month since I've been at work.
That's weird.
That's the longest I've ever been off of a job that I still had. Right, like I've been between jobs, but I've never taken a month off from a job. Anyway, I did watch Altered Carbon and crushed it all in a weekend. It was excellent.
One day.
Yeah, I didn't do that. Well, you know what? Because I have kids, and so
Yeah.
like I can't watch when kids are
Yeah.
wandering around
I-
for for a myriad of reasons.
Yeah, that
I,
show's
uh,
not kid friendly.
Language, violence, nudity.
We need to stop for a second.
Yes, yes.
There's a show that came out on Netflix
Yeah.
that Phil finished before me.
Oh,
frightening, isn't it?
Altered Carbon.
That
yeah.
has never happened.
Yeah, well, it took me literally to have to be off of everything in order to do that. And even then, I only squeaked by a couple episodes. Now, I also did finish a couple other things, right? I finished a 4-part documentary on drug lords, and that was on Netflix, and a few other things. Anyway, so Altered Carbon was amazing. In the after show, maybe we'll talk a little bit more. It clearly isn't the same as the book. But in a nutshell, where it diverges, I'm very comfortable because I think it stays close. It stays close to the theme and ideas of the book, so I was cool with that. I ran Tales from the Loop on Sunday. That's the first game I've run since December, and that was my first time back behind the screen, and it was a lot of fun. The kids are going back to school, so we did a little prep to talk about the school, favorite teachers, least favorite teacher, right? The English teacher, because they, learned English. So, what is it, Mrs. Chadwick?
Yeah.
Yes, Ms. Chadwick. Yeah, and some of the other cliques that they're that the kids get along with and don't get along with. So it was good, and we just started to kind of enter the beginning of the mystery.
Yep.
The second mystery, which and I'm actually using the mysteries out of the book. Mm-hmm. I'm just modding them a little based on the meta plot for the game, but totally working, and I'm digging. So anyway, I did that. We played that earlier that morning. We played Sequence. That was fun. I actually really like where that's going.
Me too.
And I like not only where you're taking it, but as we were sitting there and I started messing around with alternate ideas, like how would I do a version of Underground using Sequence, right? Because there's a lot of kind of extendable.
Yeah, that game, the base core of that game is interesting enough to warrant putting a bunch of stuff up on top of, and it's the base core of the game is so it's such a decent the few mechanisms that are in the cycle for that game are work together so well and are so generic in a way that they can be expanded upon to then put it for different genres.
Yeah, I like the core of it's really tight, and then every time I look at it while we're playing it, I'm like just screwing around with it. I'm like, what if we did this thing? What if we did that thing? And it's like, yeah, not all of these actually have to go in the core game.
Yeah.
But they're totally things that can be used to kind of like extend this into other usage genres and things.
We already talked about what this book would look like. It would be the core game and then a bunch of like settings with the rules mods for it.
Yeah. And probably a hacking book. Kind of like that Cortex hacking book. I thought that was actually pretty smart.
Absolutely.
What else did I do? Mostly it's like been just trying to get my shit together. Like, I mean, here's the thing. Like, you guys had that game night, and Bob offered to bring me down, but like, I'm still kind of wigged out about like snowy and icy sidewalks and stuff. Like, I was not comfortable. Like, I mean, your neighborhood is snowy.
Yeah.
And your neighborhood, because they allow both sides of the street to be parked on day and night, isn't well plowed either. Like when we record at your place, like it's snowy and so I was I've been having a little anxiety about going out of the house, and I've been making myself do it, but it's been like really anxious because out of completely random circumstance, I fell down and fucking shattered myself. And, statistically, I know I've been outside thousands of times and walked in snow thousands of times, and that hasn't happened, but it happened once, and I'm still not quite over it.
Yeah,
and
the psyche is the psyche, man.
Yeah, so, I mean, I did what I could to get over it. I bought new boots so that I have boots that I feel like have some traction to them. And I bought these at the recommendation of Glenn. I bought these things called stabilizers. They they go onto your sneakers or boots, and they have little studs to actually give you real traction in snow and stuff. So I'm I'm hoping that'll give me a little more confidence and kind of ease that anxiety, because I have to go back to work. And I'm going to have to walk that exact route where I broke my arm. Like there's not too many places I can park and too many places I can walk where I'm not going to cross that that section. Kind of wigs me out a little. Anyway, before I'm done, you guys got me an awesome get well present.
Yeah.
I mean, I have a little bit of it here.
Completely engineered, I believe, by Maro, Arcadian, and Tim. Was it?
I think it was John's idea,
Yeah.
and he said, "Hey, we should get Matt to do it," and we were all like, "Yeah, we
Yeah,
should."
absolutely.
Yeah, so you guys got Matt Morrow to make a picture of Cyberphil
Cyberphil with a
with
bionic cyber arm. Yeah,
with my cyber arm, and
It's brilliant because it's Matt.
It's fantastic.
I'm
and
sure we'll share it on the Patreons and let everybody see it. And
Oh,
it's
you know,
quite
I could do that
inspiring.
I can do that when you do the announcements. I'll go into Slack
Yeah.
and put it on the Patreon because I have the
Well, we only have one announcement, so
well, I'll be fast.
okay.
Anyway, so I did that, and I'm getting ready. I'm gonna Thursday. I'm going to run my second game for this year. I'm going to do DCC, and we are going to make the characters the level ones from the survivors of the Sunless Sea, and I have a little bit of story, and then I'm going to lead into the next module.
We lived through the funnel.
I kind of really want to come and maybe like jump in and play a hireling sometime in that game on a Thursday. I don't want to commit to playing in that game for forever. Like I want to play like 2 or 3 sessions.
Well, I mean, here's the thing: everybody has 2 characters right now. So if you were to jump in, like somebody could just give you one of the other characters to play that evening.
I don't know, play somebody else's character. That feels weird when I get him killed.
Yeah, well, I mean, it'd be easy enough to just give you some zeros.
Yeah, or maybe just give me a level 1 because that's really what I'm interested in.
Yeah, actually, I could easily do that because there's what you call it? Since I'm using the modules.
Maybe I'll wait until you finish this module and get in on the next one.
Yeah, by that point there'll be 2s.
Like, yeah, 2s.
Yeah. Oh, I'm just gonna answer really quick. I see Mo is asking about stabilizers. Yeah, so
I thought that was a great name.
It is a cool name. Glenn tipped me off to this. They're so stabilizers are this product. They're like this rubbery, stretchy material that has little ice studs on them on the bottom, and you actually just put them over your boot, over your sneaker, your shoe, or whatever, and you have now some increased traction. And they're good for like snow, ice, gravel, asphalt, things like that. Then they warn you like don't use them on like granite, like polished floor, like that kind of thing. Like,
Yeah.
So what's okay for me is like I could use them to go from the car to my office, and then in the lobby of my office there's like a bench inside, and I could just sit down, pop them off, and then walk up.
Yeah, you could throw them on when you're at home, get in your car, drive to work, get out of the car.
Yeah, exactly. Just pop them off and then, walk up. So anyway, yeah, they're cleat-likes. They're like cleats, but they're good. Like I said, I'm dealing with the anxiety of ice and falling down again, especially since my doctor basically told me like 3 things about your arm, Phil, right now. He's like, no load-bearing weight on it, so like don't use it to push yourself up in bed or, push yourself up from the table. Don't hold anything heavier than a cell phone, something I routinely ignore, and then remember a few minutes later. And then he looked at me and he goes, and don't fall. And I was like, thanks, man. Like, I'm acutely aware of don't fall.
Like I was thinking, as soon as I walk out of the office today, I'm just going to throw myself on the ground
I can
forcibly.
go back to judo, right?
Yeah.
I can return to judo practice.
Yeah, there you go.
So anyway,
Reasons I love our Slack room, our chat room during episodes. Talking about that barrister from the DCC game.
Yep.
Like Camden and Rob are just ridiculous. Like Camden's like, they're talking about how the snarky barrister died. Camden falls to the ground, raises his arms and says, "No." And Rob's like, "This saddens me. I am the sad."
I was a little sad for the barrister's passing.
By the way, for those people who might just be listening to this for the first time, they were playing DCC on Thursdays. There was a funnel. One of the characters was a barrister who was snarky, played by Bob, I'm sure, right?
No, that was
by Jerry.
That was Jerry.
There's
Jerry's
Jerry.
barrister.
Jerry
And
the
it kept
barrister.
looking like the barrister was going to make it because like every encounter, you'd be like, oh, the barrister's going to get it. And then like the guy would miss and the barrister would kill his opponent. And it's like, oh man, maybe the barrister's going to make it.
And then the barrister got
Barrister got killed like right in the last. Did he get killed or did he not make it back to the boat?
No, he got killed.
Oh, he got killed. He
Yeah.
got stabbed in the face.
Yeah. So then of course people remember those stories and then get sad about.
Yeah,
the
we were like,
barrister.
oh, the barrister. That would have been cool.
All right, we good?
Yeah, we're good.
Okay, let's talk about some announcements. So, for those people who are in the chat room, I suppose, because you people who hear this next week, I'll already be back. I'll be at Winter Fantasy, so if you're playing some D&D at Winter Fantasy, come find me. I'd love to talk to you. I'll be running 8 slots there. I'll also be getting interviews with people. Sean Merwin will also be there, so the Down with D&D crew will be at Winter Fantasy. Announcement number 2. We have an Amazon wish list. So it's been yelled at me a few times that maybe we should have an Amazon wish list. I will have a link in the show notes, and I'll probably put a link on the webpage at some point in the not too distant future. It's sort of important because we need some gear and whatnot. And like I have money to spend on that for Misdirected Mark, but I don't have an infinite amount of money, and really a lot of that money is supposed to go for us being at conventions because people want to hang out with us out.
Yeah,
in the
and
great
play games
wild
with
and
us.
play games with us. Also, as of episode 301, we're going to start streaming games because our main segment at that point will be the game room a lot of the time. So
there's definitely some excitement behind that.
Yeah. So I've been consulting with my cousin, who is like his day job is he's a video producer, and figuring out what kind of gear would be cheap for us, at least to get to set that up. So I have a list of things that I'll probably put up there too that we're trying to acquire.
Nice.
So if people want to help us with that, that'll be great.
Mo saying we need to put that Amazon link into the G Plus.
I will. It's going to go into all those places, right? So that is our announcements, and now we will move on to the main segment, which is strangely a garage. We don't do that very often, so Phil doesn't have to like destroy his voice. Today.
Yeah, it's garage.
Access granted.
So the garage, it's not even dirty. Like you dusted the place up, even with your bad arm, huh? Or did you get a robot to do it for you?
I Roomba'd it.
Roomba'd it?
Yeah, I used Alexa to call the Roomba to clean the garage.
Do you want Skynet? Because that's how you get Skynet.
Because that's how you get Skynet. That's right.
There's a thing that I saw with a Roomba with a knife on it that would go under beds. That's how you kill dust bunnies.
Yeah.
Like, no.
Do you want to know when
like
you want to know
dead
when you
cats.
shouldn't have a Roomba?
What's that?
According to my office mate.
What was that?
When you have a dog.
Yeah?
Yeah, because if your dog poops on the floor and the Roomba runs over it, then it just takes it all over the room, the house.
Spreads it everywhere.
That happened to my office mate. He had to call in sick from work one day, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I'm cleaning shit from all over my house, man." And I'm like, "What happened?" He's like, "Fucking dog, fucking Roomba. Do the math."
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway.
Oh, man. That's funny. I didn't realize that apparently that was the Roomba with a knife. That was Scott Moore.
Oh, nice.
Cindy Moore, one of the owners of Lake Effect Gaming, or Lawful Evil Gaming, as I like to call it. So, really, okay, let's talk about what we're actually talking about today.
Yeah, let's tie it back in, right?
Yeah, I might be a little scatterbrained tonight, surprisingly. We're talking Fate conversions because it was asked by Garrett Farash if we would talk about what's involved in converting Fate to a game or setting that you want to play. And we love this topic for a number of reasons. First of all, of course, on this podcast, as many of you know who've been listening for a long time, we love Fate.
Fate! Mark your bingo board.
There you go. Second, we haven't done a Fate episode in a while.
Not a long time.
Yeah.
Like we've been into different games,
Yep.
so we haven't been talking as much about Fate. Third, we have professionally done a Fate conversion of another game. We made Part-Time Gods of Fate. Encoded Designs designed that.
Absolutely. Fourth, the first thing you and I ever worked on was a Fate conversion.
It was.
In-house. Like, it wasn't even a publishable thing. It was
Yeah.
just a thing you and I did.
We wanted to play a game. Well, we were playing Underground.
Right. And and Fate Core had just come out.
And you kept taking mechanics from Fate Core and putting them into the Underground rules. And then after like session 2 or 3, I was like, why don't we just convert it and play Fate?
Right. And we were like, I was like, I don't know how to do that. And we were like, yeah, but we can try it. And we did. And it was actually really good.
It was. I really enjoyed it.
I mean, the rest of that game was, once we converted over, the rest of that game was really good.
Yeah, it was tons of fun, man. Like, holy
Yeah.
Lord, that game played super well. Okay, so tonight what we're going to do is look at the components that go into doing a Fate conversion and talk about what you do with each one. And we're not going to get through it all. This is part 1.
Yeah.
This is a huge topic.
I started writing this, and then I had to tweet you back, and I was like, Yep, we're going to have to do this in 2 parts.
And somebody marked down that we're going to do Phil's robotic arm aspects in the after show.
Yes.
So if you want to know about
Ding.
Phil's robotic arm aspects, we're talking about in the after show.
Sweetness. Can't wait.
All right, so we're going to use Fate Core primarily when we do this conversion.
Yep.
Next week, we'll talk a little bit about how we might adapt some of the things we're going to talk about to Fate Accelerated and Dresden Files Accelerated, which is different than straight up Fate Accelerated.
Yeah, I wanted to make sure that we laid the ground rules for that because if, depending on which version of Fate you're playing, some of this is transferable and a lot of it will be very specific to the version of Fate.
Very much. So what are we going to talk about exactly?
So specifically over the next two episodes, we're going to focus on 4 areas of Fate Core. We're going to talk about aspects and skills tonight.
Yeah.
And then next week, we're going to talk about stunts and extras. Okay.
So we need an example, something to work with. We're going to use Firefly for a lot of reasons. What's the first one?
Yeah, so first of all, it's pretty well known to everybody who, if you're listening to the show, it's pretty good hunch you know of Firefly at least, and probably know a decent amount about Firefly.
Yeah.
So we're not going to have to actually explain a lot of the IP stuff. We're just going to make references.
The other reason that we're going to do this is that Firefly is technically 2 genres. It is sci-fi and it is Western. So we will use both of those genres to pull inspiration from to help make this conversion.
We got 2 kinds of genres.
2 kinds of genres here, country and Western. Thank you, Blues Brothers. Appreciate it.
I'm glad somebody got that reference. And finally, the reason we picked it is there's actually a decent number of things, different types of things that we can convert. And we'll be able to use examples across all 4 of those things that I mentioned, aspects, skills, stunts, and extras.
Yeah. Okay. So the way we start a conversion is to look over the IP and we start listing some of the tropes, archetypes, trappings, to get an idea of the things we need to make sure we address them in the conversion.
Yeah, this is, if we were doing this in another game, not an IP, like this would be a lot easier because the other game actually lays out all the things that are important. And we really would just do like a kind of a 1-to-1 conversion, right? Like, the game has magic system. I need to make sure I have a magic system in here. The game has, in the case of Underground, the game has that metagenic trauma.
Yeah.
Right? So I need to make sure I have something that emulates that in the Fate version.
Correct.
Okay. So, and that's how we did Part-Time Gods of Fate. We literally took Part-Time Gods, read through it, and we're like, okay, how do we do manifestations? And we're like, okay, we have to do manifestations, check. We have to do...
divine extras.
Exactly. Like, we just one for one went through them and then started converting each one of them.
Figuring out how to do the design for Fate for the ideas from Part-Time Gods.
Right. Now, if you're doing this with an IP, like we're doing tonight, we're going to have to do some... assume that we didn't take the Serenity and or Firefly game. We're just... Like, we're doing this based off a box set of DVDs.
We could have picked up the core textbook.
Yeah, we totally could have done that. But that's not why we're doing it,
They're
right?
like sister games in a lot of ways.
So.
All right, so for the rest of this half of the segment, we're going to brainstorm some of these right now. That way we can address them in the second half. So, Phil, let us start with tropes. Where are we going?
Yeah, so I did a quick scan of TV tropes, because as you do. And here's some tropes that... are part of Firefly. So on the sci-fi side of it, we have sci-fi weapons, right? There's different science fiction weapons, beam weapons, things like that. There's ships, right? The Firefly itself and other ships. There's definitely technology, right? There's some technology stuff that's going on. The cortex, the waves, things like that. Okay. Then on the Western side, we have tropes from the Western side, right? So we have horses.
Yeah.
Yep, there are horses. There are Western weapons, because Mal's pistol, even though it's modern, really looks like a 6-shooter, and there's shotguns and all that stuff.
If you ever watch Castle, there's an episode where he's dressed in the Mal costume.
Oh yeah.
And he's like, "What are you supposed to be?" Or his daughter asks, "What are you supposed to be?" He's like, "Space cowboy."
Cowboy.
Come on now. Like,
exactly.
Yeah.
There's things like frontier towns.
There are.
Yep, they're absolutely frontier towns.
And they're really more like frontier planets, but whatever.
Yeah.
It's the same idea.
I mean, there are towns on the frontier planet. Right. Here's a couple other tropes. The rundown tramp freighter.
Yep.
Yep. I mean, that is the Firefly.
I mean, the Firefly is essentially the Millennium Falcon.
No non-human sentient beings.
Yeah, that is one of the interesting ones about this show. There aren't AIs running around. There aren't robots running around, right?
Yeah, there's no There's no robots. There's
No aliens? Is there aliens? I don't really think there are any aliens in Firefly.
nope.
Yeah, I don't remember. there
Everything's
being
just humans. Humans. Keeps it kind of simple. Now, that's some of our tropes. So if we were brainstorming this, like if we were just sitting with our DVD collection, these are some of the things like I would be writing down in a notebook.
any- Yeah.
Okay.
And the things are like, what are the things that are here? What are the things that are not here? Because you can't
Exactly.
put them in there then, because it doesn't feel like that game then.
Yep. What are some of the archetypes? So if we look at the characters, right? Because part of this brainstorming is what are the characters going to do in this game? What are some of the archetypes that we see in Firefly?
Well, there's whatever the crew of the ship is, right? And that tends to be the captain or the second in command, which we have both of those in
Yep.
Firefly. That's Mal and Zoe. There's the soldier. That's Zoe and Mal again.
Yep.
Jane
absolutely.
can sort of fill that role also.
Jane, I think there's a different one for Jane.
There's the pilot. That's Wash.
Yep.
By the way, I mean, how do you get your spear clean in the Wash?
Aw.
Anyways,
Womp womp.
there's the companion. That's an important thing because that's Anari.
Yep.
There's the mercenary. That is Jane.
That's Jane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which it's weird. I feel like the mercenary and the soldier will be pretty close to each other in a lot of ways.
They definitely can be.
Yeah.
Yep.
There's the doctor, which I always forget his name, but that's River's brother.
Yep.
Simon, right?
Simon.
Yep. There's the preacher. That's Book.
Mm-hmm.
There's the engineer. That is Kaylee.
Mm-hmm.
Or the mechanic, whichever way you want to go with it.
Yeah. I mean,
And then there's a living weapon, which is River Song. So now you have all your archetypes, for
Right.
at least your player characters.
and River is gonna, the living weapon. River is gonna be the little
Sorry.
bit of
River Song is from Doctor Who.
yes.
Did I say River Song?
You did.
I totally did.
In
I didn't
retro-
catch it at first.
now
And
that
my
he
brain
said it,
went, something's
yes.
not right.
My bad.
It's River Tam.
River Tam,
But that's
sorry.
okay.
Conceivably, she could have also been in Firefly at some point.
Yeah, I messed up. That was my bad.
That's all right.
Just somehow appears
That
in
was
the
funny.
background. Anyway, River is going to be when we get into extras and things like that. River is going to be our special case because living weapon is going to be the special snowflake case. Something's going to be a lot of this we're going to be able to cover with some pretty simple stuff, and then we're going to have to do like something else a little extra for living weapon.
Yeah, kinda.
Kind of. It won't be bad. And we'll actually show you when we get to extras. There's a way to, there's easily a way to cover this. Okay.
Why don't we talk about trappings now? So, like, trappings are the things that you are. They all have functions usually in the game, but you're just putting something on top of it to color it for the genre.
Yeah. So like waves are a thing, right? Like that's the way
Yeah.
you communicate. Which, by the way, if everybody remembers, the ill-fated
Me and
Google
Bob were
product.
talking about this earlier.
Yeah, Wave was actually named after this. The Cortex, right? That's going to have a large or smaller role depending on how you what's important to you in the game. Hover technology, right? Like we know there are vehicles that have hover technology. There are starships.
There are.
There are projectile weapons.
Yep.
There are beam weapons. We're going to need to kind of classify how the game treats all these things.
Yeah, it's interesting that way. Like,
Some of them won't be a big deal. Some of them we may want to use some other things, like add some other things in.
all right. So, with that all said and done, that's our first part. So we got all this stuff. We put it all together. Now we're going to take a small break. We're going to check in with the chat room, and when we come back, we'll start talking about how to do the fake conversion to these things. Because I mean, that was the first thing. Gather up all the stuff.
Yeah, I mean, you can't do a conversion until you have an idea of what to convert. Okay.
Before we get to the chat room, let's talk about another show from Misdirected Mark, Cypher Speak. The Cypher Speak podcast is an engaging discussion that covers the evocative and inclusive settings of the Cypher system. Darcy and Troy are entertaining co-hosts who offer GM advice and ideas for use in your games. So what's been going on in the chat room, Bob?
Oh, just all kinds of jokes about the
River Song thing?
The River Song.
I got hit pretty
and the
hard, I saw that.
Reavers. Savage Stalker of the Hill People.
Oh, don't fear the Reavers.
Yeah,
Don't
don't fear the
fear the
Reavers.
Reavers.
Spirit of the Heart, and you're to blame. You give Reavers a bad name.
Oh, nice. That's good.
Put that one down.
It was Carlin of the Hill People.
Excellent.
Oh.
Excellent.
That's excellent. Bravo.
Oh,
the Reavers
man.
actually is one I actually did forget. The Reavers would be another archetype or something that we would...
Sure.
Yeah. They're going to be an NPC.
Cannibal meanies.
They are.
For God's sakes,
Yes,
they're going to
you
be an
don't wanna
NPC.
play-
We're not
you
letting
do
any
not
no
know.
players showing up to the table being
Well,
like, "Can I be a Reaver?"
We talked mostly about player character archetypes. We didn't talk about the informant. We didn't talk about the Mr. Johnson characters. We didn't talk about the
Hands and blue.
we didn't talk about the Mishkas of the Firefly world.
Yeah.
You know, the crime lords.
Yeah. I mean, we'll have to do some NPC
was it,
stuff.
what is the name of the see, I got the freaking Protectorate in my head because I just watched Alter Carbon.
Alliance.
But the Alliance, thank
yes,
you.
not the Protector.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Those characters.
Absolutely.
The bad guy from the Serenity.
Oh, that guy! I think we can almost fall under living weapon. Like
He is, but he's also a zealot.
yes,
Yeah, he's an
gonna have
agent of
he's
the,
gonna have
of
some
the
aspects.
Alliance.
Like when we talk about making NPCs, like I guess not to jump too far ahead, and maybe this will be part of next week as well. But when you're making NPCs, you are not quite as tightly bound to anything else as you are.
It's true.
Like I can make the NPCs for everybody you said relatively quickly, and
Yeah.
they'll have more or less stuff depending on how important they are to the game.
Strangely enough, you're not really bound to anything when making characters either. Really, the stuff with the archetypes and whatnot is so that we can have example stunts in the book. Because really, you can make up your own stunts too, as much as you want. But
absolutely,
the example stunts will guide you towards those archetypes.
Exactly.
Oh man.
All right.
Anything else in the chat room?
Yeah.
And Cam said, "Can I be a Reaver that hates to work with a team?"
Yes, that's exactly the. That is exactly how I boot you out of my game. Like, I want to play an antisocial Reaver that's grudgingly going along, and I'm just like I'm on the ship, but I don't really want to contribute at every game.
I'm gonna say yes, you can play that. The scene opens. The first scene opens. The crew is standing around you, all pointing weapons at you.
Yeah. Just playing my character,
You're
man.
in the airlock.
Yeah.
You're in the airlock. It's about to open.
I swear by my pretty floral bonnet, I will end you.
All right. Is there anything else?
Moving along. Yes, let's
Cool.
do the thing. Yeah.
Okay, so let's actually let's dig in.
Yeah. So now that we've reviewed our IP, it's time to make some Fate things and build our game. So let's start with aspects. Aspects are the easiest thing because aspects are typically created on the fly. So we won't be converting really anything. We're just going to be making this stuff up.
Yeah, not too many of them.
It's important that we create aspects using the language of the IP and settings that helps reinforce play, right? Like that. I mean, anything you can do. I mean, Fate is great at this. Anything you can do to help reinforce what is going on in the game or what makes it feel like that IP, that setting, that flavor, that tone. You just want to do that. So, it's Firefly. Know some Chinese curse words to sprinkle into your aspects.
Like,
I can't really say any of them, like Jing Gong Bang.
I know, but there's actually a whole list of them out on the internet. And I think they might actually be in one of the books somewhere. But it is, that is the thing, right? The aspects are on the table. The aspects define, remember, we've talked about this in our episode on aspects. They're narratively. They're both narratively important and mechanically important. The narrative part is also in their naming. Mm-hmm. The way you name an aspect tells you a lot about the game you're playing.
It really does.
And so, yeah, I think you definitely want to make sure that you know the kind of the language, the trappings, etc., that go into your aspect names.
Yeah, absolutely.
You know what I did think of on the fly? We have aspects in a couple places, right? We have aspects at the character level.
Yes,
we have aspects on scenes and objects and things like that.
Uh-huh.
One of the other things we have is there are aspects at the campaign level.
There are.
So the one that made me think of this really quickly is the no non-human sentient beings. That can be a campaign aspect.
It could, but it doesn't have to be.
You're right, because you wouldn't actually tap it for anything.
I wouldn't. Yeah, because I wouldn't use that as a campaign aspect. That would just be like, this isn't a thing that's in this game.
Yeah,
right?
I guess that's a session zero. We write this shit
To me,
out.
a campaign aspect is the Alliance is hunting River.
Yeah.
Like that's a campaign aspect because that goes over the course of a story arc, right?
We could even have one. The war's never really over.
That is a good setting aspect.
Yeah,
right?
that's a Mal.
It totally is.
Yeah.
That could also just be an aspect for Mal.
Oh, it could be, but I think that one actually exists. The reason I would make it a campaign aspect is there are more people, even though the war's over. There's still a lot of stuff going on.
That one episode where Mal goes on that and gets into the bar fight.
No.
Like that
on
is,
the anniversary.
That is
day.
the perfect okay, Mal character playing Mal. I'm going to compel you to get into a bar fight with some Alliance people because it's this day.
Exactly.
And I give you a fate point.
Right. The one where the one where they take the body home.
Yeah.
Oof. That's to me that is still the most unbelievable episode. That's the one that, as much as I loved the series, and then watched that episode, and I was like, "Oh my god, the series is so good." Mm-hmm. Yep. All right, so back to aspects. Now there is a thing that we do need to consider from a conversion point of view, and that is the character aspects. So, by way of review, there in Fate Core, there are 5 aspects that make up your character. The first one,
High concept.
yeah. What is the high concept?
So the high concept basically defines your character. So Mal is I don't really think of an aspect for Mal that would be his high concept. He's the captain, but
Yeah.
like he is like, so that would probably be in the aspect.
The something captain, right?
Yeah,
Could be tough talking captain.
no, they gotta. Really, it's probably more about because he wants to fly the ship, right? Like always, like the ship is his baby,
Right.
Like, and that gives him his freedom because he lost the war, but he's still like broken up about that, right? Like, so probably something like I don't know, I can't think of it.
All right, I agree with you. Like if the high concept just as a reminder.
Jane is easy, the money grubbing mercenary,
Right.
right? That's simple enough.
Yeah.
Because it is like that.
He is.
That's Jane.
Right.
Wash, the eccentric romantic pilot.
There you go. That's a great one.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic.
Right. I could do everybody else. I can't do Mal. Mal is hard. So chat room, do Mal for me.
Yeah.
The mentally broken living weapon.
Oh yeah.
That's River.
Yep.
Right.
The overprotective physician and brother.
Sure. Yeah. I think I figured out Mal's. The loyal war weary captain.
Oh, there you go. That's nice.
Yeah.
War weary captain. Yeah.
Yeah. That's
Okay.
a Wallfiend. Isn't that who's that? That's a friend of yours.
That's Wally.
That's
Wally.
Wally. Yep. It's my
Yeah.
high school friend Wally.
Yeah, he came up with War Weary, and Jerry was talking about being loyal to the crew, right?
Yep.
So because he's loyal
He's
to the
very
crew.
loyal.
Yeah.
So high concept is the aspect that is basically in a nutshell defines this character. Now the next one is trouble. Trouble is the aspect that is the thing that keeps tripping up this character. It's
Yeah.
what makes the character's life difficult. In an interesting way.
Yeah. Like Simon's would be
I must protect my
River.
sister.
I
Yep.
must protect my sister. Sure.
Yeah, that is the one. And the way to think of good trouble aspects is that these are the ones that the GM is going to give you fate points for to complicate scenes. So, River gets captured, and as the GM, you pick up a fate point and you slide it over to Simon's player, and you're like, "Are you going to let the ship take off without River?"
No, you're not.
Hell no, you're not. Yeah.
So troubles are supposed to be the ones that cause the most trouble. They don't have to. Actually, technically, you can
Every
invoke them.
aspect can be compelled.
Yes.
You are absolutely correct. And in fact, the Fate Core book recommends that the best aspects have a bit of trouble in them. In fact, your loyalty thing for Mal is an easy way to compel Mal to do shit. Right? Because I can easily hand off fate points to Mal on his high concept. I can
Yeah.
compel his high concept to also... I mean, at that moment, River gets captured. I can just take 2 fate points, right? Simon,
Hey,
you in?
Mal,
You in? And then I can just pick up another one and just be like, Simon is into this, and flick it over to I can't think of her name. The engineer,
Kaylee.
like because Kaylee will back Simon.
Because Kaylee's in love with Simon,
Right.
Which is either an aspect that she has at some point over the course of the campaign.
Yeah, I
We'll
mean that's
talk about
probably
that
after
later,
a
but-
milestone she changes
yeah.
one of her aspects to match that. Okay, so Trouble's the one that's kind of your weakness. It's the one that even though you can sometimes use it for your strength, it still gets you in trouble. Like Mal's might be stubborn.
It might be, but there's one that I saw that was really good in there. Soldier Without a Command.
Possibly. I'm kind of thinking the one that like stubborn sometimes gets him in trouble, but it's also the one when he gets tortured that keeps him together.
It's true.
Like anyway, again, there's so many different
Yeah,
ways to approach
it's really
this.
how you want to do it, right? Like,
Yep. What are the last 3 aspects?
So the phase trio. So this is in standard Fate. The idea is that you have your own adventure that sort of like you're the star of. It's like a book or a movie that you are the primary lead character in. You have you kind of like say what happened there. It's like, or you write down like 2 to 3 sentences, and then you come up with an aspect based on that. Then you have crossing paths. That's where you are someone's support character in one of their stories, your adventures, because it connects you to that character. Then, and then you do that again for another character, so that you are connected to another character.
Yeah.
And what it does is it builds group cohesion.
Now, if you want to see the completely blown up version of this, go back and look at Spirit of the Century,
Yeah.
where you had to do this to every other
Everybody.
character at the table.
So Spirit of the Century, from a design point, is problematic because there's too many aspects.
There's like 7 to 9 of them, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's a lot.
Yeah, it's a lot.
All right, so the phase trio, again, the phase trio is to do a couple things, right? Your adventure kind of establishes who you are. The crossing path links you to a player, and the crossing paths again. What is it? In the first one, they're the co-star. They're the co-star in your story.
Well, it's just you just pick two characters that you're co-stars.
Yeah, so you're just linked.
Yeah,
you're linked
linking
to those.
They're linking to characters.
Right.
That's all it is.
And when everybody does that, then we're all linked together.
Or at least you're linked to enough of the party that everybody should have at least one. Well, everybody will have two other links.
Yep. So by itself, that setup works perfectly fine for every Fate game, and you don't really have to mess with it too much. But
we're going to though.
But we're going to because it is a place where you can
really push the themes and
absolutely
parts of your setting, like your IP that you're trying to convert to your game.
And I think the real tip is you can mess with the aspects, the starting aspects for a character, but don't add any more.
I agree with that. In fact, take one or two away if you want.
Yeah, like change them around. But don't, like, that's the whole point. Like Dresden, the original Fate Dresden and Spirit of the Century had this problem of too many aspects. And here's where it's, quote, a problem. Players won't use all of them.
Correct.
Like if you have 9 aspects, you're going to hit on, like, again, based on play, 4 or 5 of them fairly routinely.
Yeah.
And the other ones are going to be there, but they're just bloat.
Yes.
So our advice to you is, feel free to modify these 5, but don't add like 5 more.
I don't add any more.
Don't add any more.
Like I said, take 1 or 2 away. Go down to 3.
Yeah. Do you want to talk a little bit about in Part-Time Gods of Fate what we tinkered with?
Yeah. So in there, we went with the idea that you have a divine and a mundane aspect, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And then you picked up an aspect from your theology.
Yep.
If I remember correctly. So your divine aspect was something that was about your power. About the power that you got, sort of the god. Because
I am the god of chaos.
Yeah, but your high concept, I thought, was part of that. Maybe
no, because we got rid of the high concept.
Oh, there was no high concept in that game. That's right, because you were both these things. That was the important thing,
right?
Because they would both cause you trouble and give you boons,
right?
So there was that, and then the mundane aspect was what you were in your real life. Like I am a school janitor,
exactly,
right? Like down on my luck school janitor,
right? And the god of chaos.
And the god of chaos.
Right.
So like you're both of these things. So we messed with that stuff pretty hard, actually.
Yeah. Yeah, and that was and the idea with that was and we had a bigger theme for that was that half your character sheet was mundane and half your character sheet was divine. Like right down the line. In fact, you actually can take the Part-Time Gods character sheet and fold it in half.
It was done on purpose.
Very much so. Yeah. So you can mess with them, and I agree with you. If you're going to do anything, take away aspects.
Yeah.
Don't take them all away. You need some. But don't bloat. Don't add.
You need at the base your high concept and your trouble.
Exactly. Even if you change the names of those. Like, here's the thing. In Part-Time Gods of Fate, both aspects were your high concept. And both of them were also your trouble.
Yeah, it was great that way.
Because depending on which side of your life was flaring up, the other one is your trouble. Right? So if you're doing godly stuff, then your mundane life starts knocking on the door. And if you're doing mundane stuff,
your godly life
is blowing up.
Because the game is all about the balance between those two things.
Exactly. And GMs are encouraged to pull and pull them in both directions for fun.
Well, now let's do that for Firefly, I suppose, right?
So last piece of that.
There's one more piece.
If you are going to mess with these, change the definition of the phase trio.
Which is funny because we didn't for Part-Time Gods. We can do something completely different.
No, we did. I mean, we had a specific design idea, but if we're doing this, and we're going to stick to 5 aspects, the place you want to tinker with is mess with the content of the phase trio, as in what those aspects represented.
Correct.
So let's do it.
So first one for us is growing up, like what you were when you were younger and growing up. And this will play into the second one, which is
the war.
So everything before the war, really. What were you doing growing up before the war?
Yeah, and then this in our second one, then we're going to have you tell a little story and pick an aspect of how the war affected you, because that's actually, I mean, if we look carefully, every character has some relation to the war. Now, they might not have all been soldiers and fought in it, but the war is an event that occurred in everyone's life, and something came from it. So for like Mal and Zoe, it's like a really big deal.
Yeah, but for like Simon and River, I don't think it's a big deal at all.
Right, but they were, but you know, if you're making up your characters, you would tell a story about the war. Maybe you were, maybe like the war never touched you. Like, I don't get what the big deal is.
Well,
could be your aspect.
I'm pretty sure that they were Simon was in school and River was in that other place
Yeah,
during the war.
yeah. Exactly.
So I mean, it's just what was going on in your life during the war.
Exactly.
Hopefully, and really the idea is like, how did the war touch you?
Exactly. And you would work to kind of put that, that description together as you're making your characters.
Yeah. Like, I can't remember what Kaylee's deal was with the war. I don't know what happened to her.
I
in the
don't
war.
really know. I mean, one could dig through like the wiki pages or something,
yeah.
but I'm sure there's something in there. Lastly, what's our last one?
Yeah, 1 second. Bob, would you just put in there for the after show? Because I need to talk about that. Oh, God.
Yeah.
I'm going to kill somebody. No, I'm not going to kill somebody. I'm not going to kill anybody. It's just a verbal tick I picked up from somebody that drives me crazy. I thought I got rid of it, and I didn't. Anyways, phase 3, which I think is really great, is how you got on the ship.
Yes.
Because it connects everybody to the ship, which when we do extras next week, we'll talk about the ship.
Uh-huh.
And like with those things, like you kind of know your history, what role the war played in your life, which I'm now thinking that there maybe should be something like the war or what happened to you during the war. Like if the war didn't touch your life, what's the thing that
we could change it to during the war or something like.
Yeah. Well, because the war is super important to some of those characters, but it's not important at all to other ones.
Right.
Yeah. So, and that's fine. Like, I didn't think about it until we started talking about it. So that's, those things happen. But that's why we design things and then mess with them, right?
Well, that's why we play test it.
Yeah, exactly.
Of course, our design could be that, we're more interested in playing characters who've been touched by the war.
Ah, yes. Which is very Eberron.
Yeah. Yeah, that is very Eberron, actually.
Mm-hmm.
Ooh, I like Eberron.
I do too.
Okay. All right. So messing with the phase trio is a way to put your mark on the game without really messing with any underpinnings of the game. Like, it's a safe place for you to put a mark, like to put your mark on the game without worrying about breaking anything.
Correct.
All right. So
What's next?
The next one we're going to do is we're going to do skills. So for skills, we've got some more options now for how we're going to approach things. But first, we should look at the Fate Core skills. So Fate Core comes with a default skill list that has a very slight bend towards fantasy, and that's mostly in the knowledge skill lore. Lore sounds very fantasy.
It does.
And if you
yeah, it's funny because they have drive in there.
Right.
So
the other ones are actually pretty generic.
I mean, I would say that the skill list is pretty.
It's
just
pretty
generic. It's just a generic skill list.
Yeah, it encompasses almost everything you're going to need.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I would say 80% or more of the skills you need are already in Fate Core.
Yeah, absolutely.
What we're going to be looking for is the idea if we need other skills to put into the list.
Uh-huh.
And I would start with the idea that the answer is no, and make an argument for why you do. And what I think, and I didn't put this in this notes when I wrote it, but we could also talk a little bit about, we added some skills to Part-Time Gods of Fate.
We had to for the manifestations.
No. Put the manifestations completely aside. We added some mundane skills.
Yeah, because there's nothing for like computers in there, I think.
Yeah. Right. So the idea was, we started with the idea like, let's not add any, and then make a case for why you have to put one in.
Mm-hmm, because it's actually a bit of work to build a skill.
Yeah, they're not trivial.
They're not trivial.
They're not trivial, and they have some other consequences if the skill list starts to get too big.
Because of how skills get distributed.
Yeah. All right. So let's continue.
Yeah, I mean, you pretty much covered all the things that I was supposed to say, but really, one of the things when thinking about the skill list is, aside from thinking about, like you just said, do we need any more of these things? Like, is there something that we're not covering with the skill list? Is like, can a stunt modify a skill to do the thing that you want it to do.
And we're going to cover this next week when we talk about stunts in more depth. But as a little sidebar, one of the things that a stunt can do is a stunt can modify a skill and either expand or change the conditions under which it's used.
Now, I actually, from a design point of view, I do not enjoy when something is designed where like I can't do a certain thing period in the game unless I have the add-on for it, because I like the idea of when I do put the add-on to a thing, like it just makes me better at the thing, so that therefore there might be a space where like people can try this thing, but because I have this stunt, I will always be able to do it better. So at least it leaves it open.
Right. So what you're saying, and again, we're drifting a little into stunts, but I'm okay doing this. One of the other things a stunt can do is a stunt can grant a +2 to a single action, or a +1 to 2 actions. So
yes,
gain
in a specific situation.
In a specific situation. So gain a +2 to overcome with
drive.
With drive when
you're behind the wheel of a car.
Sure.
Because you could not be driving a car.
Yeah.
Like you're a wheelman.
Exactly. And then stunt would be something more like we have a skill called drive, but we could have one that's like pilot, which is you may use drive when operating planes and other atmospheric vehicles.
Yeah. And strangely enough, that situation right there is the design that I don't like.
Which is funny because that is actually a design I do like.
Yeah, I know.
And so which will bring up our first point is that you have more than one way to approach this. There's no formula for this. Mm-hmm. You're going to make a design decision in your bless you. You're going to make a design decision in your conversion on which one of these you like.
Yeah.
And we'll talk about why they both work, and we'll also talk about why both of them are problematic.
Yeah, which is exactly why it's good that we don't agree on it.
Exactly. So we are going to use the drive skill for our Firefly example because in the Fate Core book, drive encompasses anything that you can drive as a vehicle, right? It just simply says, like, you can drive. It does actually make reference that you might either want to specify this or whatever, because this, in and of itself, is a very broad,
very broad
skill. In a fantasy game, it's not that broad of a skill, right? Drive is like horses and carts, and we're good, right? And even in a modern game, it's a little more problematic, right?
Well, drive is everything, like
right?
Airplanes, helicopters,
cruise boat.
Yep.
Yeah. So in Firefly, we've got a couple different classes of vehicles, right? So if we just simply bin these out, we have animal-powered vehicles.
Yes,
right? Because we have horses, we have pulled carts, things like that.
Those things exist.
Then we have terrestrial vehicles, things that operate in a planet.
Yeah, cars, boats, hover vehicles, trains that are basically hover vehicles.
Things that fly in the atmosphere. Yeah. And then finally, we have starships.
Yeah.
Like things that go from planet to planet.
From small ones like Fireflies to the giant
Alliance
capital ships.
Yeah, exactly. Those floating city things. Yeah. So we can go a couple different routes. And we're actually going to kind of talk about we'll talk about 3 of them, I think.
We will, in fact, yes. So the first one is like you have one skill to cover them all, one skill to rule them all.
Sure.
Right? Like, so drive. It's a skill. It covers everything, like we just said. Like you can do whatever you want with it. If you have the drive skill, you can make a roll to do stuff with vehicles.
Yep.
It keeps the game simple. It's very pulpy in a lot of ways. That makes it less realistic because action movies tend to not be very realistic. I mean, if you can ride a horse, you can pilot a starship. So there might be a bit of a disconnect there, but that is generally where I prefer to have my play style.
So I would say that this is one of the reasons you would want to do this is that you don't really want to make a big deal out of piloting vehicles, right? What I mean by that is like you don't want to have a ton of different skills for this. You basically just like, well, people can pilot stuff.
Yeah.
And stunts are going to make people pilot stuff better.
No, this is correct. I do have a point to make about area of expertise in Fate, if you don't mind, when it comes to skills. when you're doing your skill, when you're doing like assigning skill points to characters, like you're only gonna get 1 4 and 2 3s. If you have a 4 or one of those 3s, you're a pilot. Like you're the person that drives stuff. You're the wheel person, right? So, I don't like if I'm Mal, I could still fly the ship.
Yep.
But I don't want to have to burn a stunt to say that I can fly the ship.
Right. And so part of our consideration is we have to look at like, if we look at those archetypes, we have to look at like Mal and Wash.
Correct.
And decide what mechanically is the difference between these two characters. Like,
yeah.
Like what does Wash have that is
Well, Wash has a 4 in drive.
Sure.
And then he probably has a stunt. In my game. Your game it'll be different.
Yeah. So actually, you know what? Let's back up. Let's do the 3 different ones we're talking
Yes,
about,
and then we'll talk
and then we'll
about
come
it.
back and talk about
That's a good
how we
idea.
might solve this.
So tell me about the next one.
So the next one is I could make 3 pilot skills, 1 for each of these classes, right? I could do pilot, animal powered, pilot, terrestrial, pilot, starship. This is quote more realistic, as in you may know how to ride a horse, but you don't know how to fly a starship.
And by realistic, it's more like you have spent the points mechanically to have these different skill sets.
And you can have them at different levels.
Correct.
Like I might be terrible at riding a horse and amazing at flying a starship.
Yes,
Wash.
absolutely.
Right? Okay. The problem with this one is you are now starting to bloat the skill list.
And according to Fate Core, you only get 15 points to assign at the beginning.
Exactly.
Or 15 slots to assign at the
Right.
beginning.
And
Sorry.
so if you start making more
15?
and
10. 7, 8, 9, 10. Yes, it's 10.
yeah.
Sorry.
And then there's 15 skills.
Yes.
Right. Because basically what happens is when you make a Fate Core character, you have a rating in almost all the skills, and then you have a 0 in some. But if you now have increased that list, there are now more skills that you may not be.
So you
skill.
either have to deal with the fact or understand the fact that not everybody's going to have access to all the skills, which is actually a thing that Fate doesn't want you to do. They want the whole crew of people to have access to all the skills so they can all use them.
Right.
Or you have to increase the amount of skill points that you're giving to the players to make their characters.
Yep. Now, Jared Rasher's asking us, what about assumed competency based on aspects? So yes, if you have an aspect like kick-ass starship pilot, then you and let's say you have no skill in it, you would roll with no skill bonus. You would roll flat.
Yep.
But you can then invoke that aspect for the +2 or the reroll.
Yep. So like you can still make piloting checks.
Yeah.
With the starship because
Absolutely.
because aspects are always true.
Right. And in fact, one of the things that Fate Core does is that if you don't have a skill, you can still roll. You just get a 0. Like you get a 0 for the skill part.
So I live in the world, I guess. Well, let's talk about the third one first before we
Yeah.
get to that, I suppose.
All right.
So you make pilot cover one type, and then you stunts to allow the skill to function for the others.
I find this to be a nice
You do
balance.
find this to be a nice balance. With the design of Fate and me understanding that in its base core state it's supposed to be super competent characters doing super over the top kind of pulpy things, especially based on the 2 games that came first for it, which are Spirit of the Century and
Yes.
Dresden Files, which are both
Yes.
very pulpy games. And just the design in general, like you're often succeeding because you could just burn points after rolls and whatnot. It's not for me. Like I think the game doesn't function well. Fate in itself doesn't function well in that design space. I think it can. I think you can do some work to make it work that way, but it's not as easy. But what that means anyway is that the main skill, it covers whatever. So the main skill covers driving. So you're driving vehicles.
Yeah.
On like the ones that we were talking about, like hover cars, like the stuff that people would normally drive.
Exactly.
But you don't have access to piloting like starships, and you don't have access to piloting to riding animals well anyway, without having something that lets you do that, a stunt or an aspect.
Right. Or you could, for instance, you could have the skill handle, listen, you can do everything but starships. You need the stunt to do starships.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Like you don't
could do it that way
you
too.
could right, you could do 1 skill, 2 stunts, you could do 1 skill that has two classes of driving plus, a stunt, that kind of thing. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Like I could basically say that drive is everything that's on a planet.
Mm-hmm.
And then you need a stunt to fly a starship.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So those are three approaches, and there are three approaches, and I think I'm going to back up and review them really quick because.
Well, here, if you don't mind, I'll just hit it.
No,
real
it's okay
quick.
because I'm seeing the chat room saying that we're losing them a little on that. So
Yeah. One skill to cover everything, like drive covers driving everything.
yep, you have the skill. Whatever you have a plus at, it's the plus for every type of thing you drive.
You can break it up into the three things. You can break it up into animal powered, vehicle powered, and starship powered.
Yep, and you need a skill in each of those.
And then you could even do it where it's drive, right? You have the skill drive, which covers driving anything. Or no, it covers driving stuff on land.
Yep.
Right. I guess we're including horses in that, and animals and stuff. So it covers all that stuff, but it doesn't cover starships. But there's a stunt that you can take, or an aspect that you can build to cover starships.
Yeah.
Those are the three ideas that we've come to.
Yeah, and none of them are solely right. None of them are solely wrong.
They all work just fine, actually, from design points of view.
And they all actually fit in the spirit of
Firefly
Fate
and
and
Fate.
Firefly. It really becomes and this is where you as a designer, even if you're making this thing for your home game, you're designing. You as the designer have to make a decision.
Yeah, because even though all those things fit those three things, all three of those choices will shift how your game plays a little bit.
Exactly. And so you're gonna make that choice based a lot on how you think you want the game to play. My recommendation is that you should always avoid skill bloat. Right?
Yeah.
Like we talked about that before. So as much as you can create three separate skills, of this list, that's my least favorite, right? Because if I'm creating three skills for this, and I get sloppy, I'm doing it somewhere else too, and now I've made way too many skills. Okay. So I like yours and I like mine, right? The three skills is like, yes, possible, not my favorite.
Yeah.
And so the point you're making is to stay with the pulpy feel of both the genre and the game. One skill's good enough, and
one skill's good enough,
right? And so my point would be, I've never seen Jane fly the ship.
You never have,
right? And we don't know if Jane can fly the ship. We know that Inara can fly a ship.
Yep.
We know Mal can do it.
Yep. We know River can.
We know, right? So, I can go both ways on this, right? I could easily go your direction and be like, well, enough people can actually fly the ship that probably Jane could have as well. He probably has a 0 in it, but he probably could as well.
I have another idea.
Yeah.
And this is completely outside the realm of a little bit of Fate, but it's like a Fate hack that you can do for the conversion.
Can you hold that for 1 second?
Sure.
Okay, and then we'll finish this example. So if I think that only specialists can do a thing,
yeah,
then I like the idea of there's a base skill, and then the specialist takes a stunt that opens it up so that average people can't do it, but the person with the stunt can. And that's like, from a design consideration, that's where I like that combo. So if I'm like, well, for my Firefly, if it's on a planet, people know how to drive it, ride it, or whatever. But starship pilots are special. And I don't necessarily think that's true to canon, but if that was my feeling, like starship pilots are special, then I like this design.
Yeah.
Where I use the stunt to complement that.
I like that design for certain things. Of course, this is just my personal opinion. I think it would work just fine for this game. It's not the way that I would do it because I don't think that starship pilots are special, right? And I don't want characters to have to burn that just so they can fly a ship.
Right. And we'll talk a little bit later about after you've made some of these changes, you can also change how many starting stunts characters get, how many starting skills. Like,
So the other way that you can do it is, as long as you have a +1 in drive or higher, you can fly starships.
that's interesting because that is not anywhere in the Fate Core rules.
There's a couple of hacks out there that are like if
yeah,
you
hacks are outside of this.
and
If
by
we were-
when I'm saying hacks, I mean in the toolkits.
Yeah, so that's actually, let's stop and talk real quick because I didn't put this in here. Let's talk real quick about the toolkit, the toolkit book. Are there 2 of them now?
I think there's 2 of them.
Yeah.
There might be more.
So the Fate Toolkit is a book that covers kind of ways to hack Fate and different kind of subsystems and things that you could build that are within the spirit of Fate. And they are, like for instance, in the first toolkit, there's a bunch of magic systems. Very different
Yeah, very different.
magic systems, but it gets you the idea of different ways to approach the concept of magic. So you're right. One of the places we can go to look for inspiration and ideas and something to riff off of is from the toolkits.
Yeah, and I've seen it in a couple of games, like published things.
Yeah. I'm saying you don't know, you don't, I'm saying it's not a rule in core, but it is a thing that you could make.
Yeah.
And put into your game.
I mean, if we're just going to stick with what is specifically in core, I mean, I'm okay with you either have to have a stunt or an aspect that lets you fly a starship, because you can put that somewhere in your aspects without having to burn a refresh. It just has to be part of an aspect.
I'd also be cool with that.
Yeah.
I'd also be cool with that because you're basically saying there's something about my character
That
is,
lets me fly starships.
Yeah. I don't know, Bob, we're going to turn to the player perspective for a second. You've played some Fate.
Yeah.
What's your feels on when making a character? Like, do you want a stunt that lets you use a skill a certain way, or do you like the stunts that like tend to give you, bonuses and things like that?
It depends on really what the game is about, honestly. But for using this example, like I would love it if I'm playing Wash. I would love it if I could get away with having my high concept be, best pilot in the verse. Right. And that covers me being able to fly any damn ship out there, and I don't have to pump a whole bunch of points into the skill of drive. And I can use those elsewhere for other things to round out the character or to make him more interesting.
I'd still be putting my +4 in drive.
Then
I'd be taking a stunt that gives me
well, you know what
Plus
stunt you're taking.
leaf on the wind.
Leaf on the wind.
Leaf
Yes,
on the
correct.
wind, yeah.
We'll
Which
get to that
we'll get
next
to that
week
next
when
week.
when we talk about stunts. We'll talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
Leaf on the wind, absolutely. I'm with you, right? Like that is the one thing about buying the stunt that gives you access to a skill is that you don't get any bonuses.
It's true.
You don't get cool bonuses. But I agree and agree with you as well that if my character is going to be best pilot in the verse, right? I'm taking one aspect best pilot in the verse. I'm taking my +4 in pilot.
Yeah.
And you can be pretty sure that I have Leaf on the Wind as my first stunt, which is giving me a +2 under, like, +2 to overcome actions when piloting through dangerous situations.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that is a +4, a +2 from my, that's a 6, and I've got another +2 riding on my aspect with a fate point.
Plus, one of my 3 phase trio aspects probably has something to do with pilot too.
Yeah.
So the reason, that's why I like the design where everybody can sort of fly the ship if they want to, because why the hell is Wash not flying the ship?
Yeah, because he's the best pilot in the
Correct.
verse.
And if he's not flying the ship,
What has happened?
What has happened, and who's flying the ship then?
Yeah.
And that way, characters can still.
Yeah.
That's how, if you want to talk about niche protection, that's how I protect my niche for my characters.
Is that you take such a high thing that of course you're the guy
Well,
behind
yeah,
it.
you're the
Right.
driver, right? And because Zoe is actually 2 archetypes. She is the captain, she's the commander, whatever that
Yep,
is.
absolutely.
And she's the soldier.
Yep.
She's both Mal's both of those too, but But Mal has more stunts on the leadership side, and Zoe has more stunts on the soldier side.
Yeah, exactly.
Right, like,
and
what makes
that
them
is
different.
literally the difference between those two characters. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, right. So, this is.
I mean, we just had a huge drawn-out discussion about how skills work, but like it's hard to have. It's in fact hard to have that discussion without actually talking about stunts.
Yeah, and the thing is, because there is a coupling of those two. And I like this. So, I like this flexibility. I like that this gives me a flexibility. Now, I will say that in general, I like less skills than more skills.
And me too. That's why I like playing accelerated, because our
Right.
approach is not even skills.
Right. One of the things that makes me crazy about, one of my favorite trad games, Corporation, is that Corporation has this really weird thing with skills where it has single skills that cover things like social things, but it has like 5 different weapon skills, right? Because it has pistol, like assault rifle, heavy, like it has like it blew out all the weapon skills and like left the other ones kind of condensed. And it's like, yeah, but I don't know, doesn't that seem needlessly complicated?
Sort of, but it's
Right.
it's obviously pointing you at the fact that part of the game is important.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely part of the
It's-
goal there. I mean,
Well, I
it's-
think the other thing it does is it also weeds you out from buying every piece of equipment,
That probably too.
because you have to, it does. There's so much equipment in that game that I think it funnels you into picking some certain types of equipment. All right, so going back to the thing about skills is you're going to make some design decisions about, do you have all the skills you need to represent this game, like to represent your IP. Now, when we did this for Part-Time Gods of Fate, and we touched on this in the before, we created a new skill called technology.
Yep.
Because one of the things that Fate Core didn't have was something like use a computer, look something up on Google,
Hack something.
hack something, those kinds of things.
Although, I think we actually we actually did the thing where we actually had to put in a stunt if you wanted to hack.
Oh no, I think we had a stunt. No, I think we had a stunt that gave you a +2 to hack. Because
Oh,
I think it
okay.
was I think it was Leet Skills was the name of the stunt.
That's right.
Yeah.
Never
Leet
mind.
Skills gives you a +2 on overcome checks when hacking a system.
Yeah, there you go.
But technology was everything from how do I use my GPS to how do I find a thing on Google, those kinds of things. And we added that because there just wasn't anything in the list.
It was a gap.
It was a gap, and it was a gap because that default list, while fairly solid, didn't completely represent modern life.
Yeah. And that's a thing.
Right. And I think we put one more in. I think we put another one for mythology, if I remember
Yeah,
correctly.
because that played into the game.
Yeah. That was
Something
very much
very
about the game.
specific to that was away from just general knowledge. Because we had education, I think, is one.
Yeah. Oh,
We changed-
education. Well, education was our lore.
Yeah.
Which
We renamed.
is about.
We're going to talk about that now.
We're
yeah.
just about to talk about that.
So
perfect
like,
timing.
If you want to rename a skill,
Yes.
not that if you want to, you should rename skills to make them sound
Setting
like-
appropriate.
Yes, setting appropriate. Thank you.
Yeah.
That's the thing that you want. And we were just talking about Part-Time Gods of Fate lore.
Like we changed lore to I think it was either knowledge or education.
I think it was education.
right because it didn't sound it sounded right for the godly part, but it didn't sound right for the mundane part.
Which is why then we came up with mythology.
Yeah.
Because that could tell you stuff about outsiders and other things like that.
Yes.
But
And we separated those because having a PhD in biochemistry did not mean you understood how divine things work.
correct.
And that was a distinct
Well, we did the mundane versus the divine thing. That was why we had those two different skills.
We split those purposely.
So for Firefly, you might want to change lore to learnin'.
Learning. Correct. With learning.
Inara would probably have a very high learnin'.
Yeah.
Inara.
Simon will.
Inara.
And Simon.
Inara.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Inara, Simon
Sonara
definitely
would
will
have a very high
learning.
learning. Yeah.
Yeah.
He would probably have the highest learning.
Yeah.
Plus some sort of aspect that puts him as a doctor.
And maybe a stunt that allows him to do some healing or something.
Yeah, that. By the way, the stunt aspect skill combo is kind of what defines your archetype, by the way.
Yeah.
Like, it really helps.
Yep. Absolutely. So renaming skills is perfectly fine. And renaming skills does not hurt anything in the game because mechanically you haven't changed anything. Setting wise, you are in reinforcing your setting by making some of these by changing some of these names.
Yeah,
I don't
all these
advise
things matter a lot too.
right, and I don't advise that you change all the names of the Fate
No.
because most of the Fate skills, fighting, shooting, physique, athletics, they're perfectly fine in every genre.
Yep.
But like for me, lore is the one I will always come back to and fix depending on the game. Because it's just like I want that one to be the correct meaning for the right genre. And again, we used learnin because part of our genre for Firefly is Western. Right? Even though we know the Central worlds are cultured and and have higher education and all that, to fit our setting, we adapt the word learnin.
You know what? I guess tone we didn't actually talk about, or theme, I suppose, that we probably should have. The idea that Firefly as a whole is about big damn heroes.
Yes, which is good because Big Damn Heroes fits super well with the idea of the competent, dramatic.
Yeah, I mean it's perfect for Fate. Like I think Firefly works great in Fate.
I do too. Yeah. I actually think that these are actually a really it's a really natural fit.
Absolutely.
So yeah. So
so we're good then, right?
I think we're good, right?
Yeah. So next week it's all about stunts and extras, right?
Yeah, stunts and extras. We'll come back and touch a little bit on skills and aspects because it's impossible not to. But stunts and extras are going to be bigger because stunts are very flexible, as we've kind of hinted to already, and extras are extras is really big. Like I shouldn't say really big. Extras are as big as you want it to be. And for a Firefly game, we're going to have to address a handful of things.
Yes.
Because we have already hinted at starships
man,
and stuff.
The ship is importantly huge to Firefly.
And we're going to need to give it some treatment for it to be meaningful.
Like it needs to be setting. It needs to be meaningful to the characters. It needs to be a lot of stuff.
It needs to be mechanically relevant because you need to be able to shoot at it.
Yep.
It needs to be able to run away from things.
It needs to be a character.
It can be. That's a thing we can talk about. We can talk about the difference of.
I mean, I suppose we will talk about that, but for Firefly, I feel like the ship was as much of a character as the rest of it.
The ship is a character in the story. That is different than being represented as a character with skills, aspects, and everything else.
That is true.
But will it have aspects? Most likely.
Nice.
Will it probably have stunts? Probably. Does it need
Probably.
skills? It probably doesn't.
It doesn't.
But could it? And yes, it could.
Yes.
So, that will be more for our discussion as we get into that part of the topic next week. So, Gary, I hope you are enjoying this because we started out with the idea of doing this as one episode, and very quickly I realized I'm like, wow, we've got a lot of material.
Conversation,
here.
yeah.
Yeah.
All right, let's go to the chat room. Anything in there?
Jared just said, my brain is drifting as I'm trying to think about if you could model Firefly using the number of aspects that apply for skills from P.K. Sullivan's Three Rocketeers.
Absolutely.
Yes,
You could.
totally.
And believe me, I've thought about that, but
Yeah.
we were talking about core. So
Totally.
Yeah.
Right. We were very careful to say core because next week we're going to talk a little bit about accelerated and stuff like that because those are a little different, and I think that would actually get closer to what PK did as well.
If you want to play a game that is very pulpy and very big damn hero-ish, and you want to build a game based on that, you can just use PK Sullivan's Three Rocketeers.
Three Rocketeers
it
is
works
awesome.
very effectively. It's very simple too because you don't need to have skills. You just need the aspects.
He was very clever about that.
It was very clever.
Yep.
All right. Well, I guess is there anything else? Or are we going?
Let me look and see if I wrote anything else down.
That wasn't a word.
I saved some stuff for the after.
Are we going or are we good? That's
We are
first.
good.
All right, here we go.
We are
Social
good.
Media Depository. So some things going on. Jason Pitt, he's got a thing with Genesis of Legend Publishing called the Emerging Voices Challenge. I will have a link in the show notes. Here's what it is. It's about promoting a new designer to receive a new game. Jason would like you to publicly promote or review an analog game produced by an emerging voice. This could be from a new creative, somebody who's just crafting their first game. It could be from a more established pioneer from an underrepresented community. Lend your support and your passion for these new games and their creators. And if you do so, go to the website and fill out a form that he has there. He's going to collect all of these projects and promotions to help spread the word, and then he will mail a physical copy of Post-Human Pathways to you. So there you go. That is the Emerging Voices Challenge. I think that's wonderful. I love it.
Awesome.
That's awesome.
Yeah, fantastic. Thank you very much, Jason, for doing something like that.
That is some cool stuff.
All right. Next thing, current Kickstarters. Vagabonds of Die-Fed RPG. OSR meets PBTA.
I feel like the needle skips across the record. What?
What? I mean, Dungeon World is sort of like
Well,
an
I
OSR.
know that's part of my feeling is like, is Dungeon World already this? But it actually says in here, it starts talking about
So
this.
if Dungeon World's too story-based for you.
Is it? I don't know. Maybe I'm just a hippie story gamer. Maybe that's my problem.
So the premise of this game, which I find to be fascinating, is you have tags for your characters, like almost aspects. This is almost very much in the vein of P.K. Sullivan's Three Rocketeers, like little phrases that you have. And there are 5 of them that you get to begin with, and eventually you'll add more as your character grows organically through weird, strange situations. When you go to do anything, you basically say how any of your tags apply, and then you roll 2d6, and each one of your tags that apply, you get a +1.
Up
to
plus
3.
Yep.
Now, there are, of course, negative things that could be in the situation, too, that give you -3, but there aren't, like, the move system there is very World of Dungeons. Like, there is the 6-, the 7 and 9, the 10 to 12, and the 13+.
Yep.
There aren't any other moves.
Is it just one move? Or is
I
it?
think it's just the one move from what I read.
Interesting. Okay.
It is very interesting. So, I mean, that's kind of the game, and it's supposed to simulate like more of the OSR because it's supposed to be playable with all of those old OSR mods. Which, once again, I'm with you, Phil. Like, I could play Dungeon World with all those old OSR mods too, but I'm still fascinated by this.
Well, I'm always interested. All right. So first of all, I dig OSR retro clone stuff because it's nostalgic for me. 2, I'm always interested when people start drifting design stuff for Powered by the Apocalypse because we're at that point, like, we saw the original Powered by the Apocalypse. We saw the first generation Dungeon World and Monster of the Week, like the ones that were like almost direct ports.
Yeah.
We've now seen. Then we saw the second generation, the more mature ones, the Urban Shadows and stuff like that. And then we've seen the derivatives like Blades in the Dark, right? Like we've seen the ones that now we
Tales from the Loop feels like a derivative.
Yeah, Tales from the Loop has a lot of DNA from Powered by the Apocalypse, but it's clearly not. So it's interesting to kind of see where this is going. I will say this. I'm fascinated by the mechanics of this.
Yeah,
I don't know if it's solving a problem that I have, right? Like sometimes a game solves a problem I have. Like I want to play kids on bikes solving mystery game, right? I now have a couple games that can now do that, right?
This is the PBTA version of... The reason I'm interested in it is it's the PBTA version of Sequence, because Sequence plays like this, except you're adding dice to the pool instead of adding pluses to a 2d6.
I mean, yes and no, because listen to some of the design considerations here, right? A single PBTA move, right? That's the thing. Player-generated character traits instead of predefined playbooks or attributes. High character lethality.
That one's weird.
And strong GM authority.
That one's... I mean, that's awesome.
I'm not... I mean, again... I'm not sure if this is solving a problem I have as much as I'm curious to see what you're doing.
That is definitely curious to see what you're doing because there's a lot of games that have that stuff.
Well, and also strong GM authority is not a thing that I desire in my games. I don't need strong GM authority because I actually like collaborative work.
And that's where this game differs from my design.
Exactly. Now, high character lethality... I like in games where that is, where there's where that's design. Like I don't dislike that, right? Paranoia. I think high character lethality. DCC. I play DCC, right? High character lethality is a thing.
We both like playing roguelikes at times.
What's that?
We both like playing roguelikes at times.
Oh, I love roguelikes, right?
So I mean, of course,
high lethality happens. Yeah,
the randomness of the game can kill you.
Right. I think the one that I'm cocking an eyebrow here as I'm looking through this list is strong GM authority. Like first, I'm not sure what that means. And I don't know what problem it's solving compared to Dungeon World. Like, is Dungeon World not strong GM authority?
I think it is.
I mean, when I get to make a move, nothing can actually stop me. Like, it's the thing like you do and like Jason Cordova does. If I tell you that mouth is about to eat you, what are you going to do? And you roll defy danger, and get a 6.
I'm gonna eat you.
I eat you. Like, we're not debating it. Like, I eat you. I said I was going to before you made that roll, and you failed. I eat you.
We set the stakes.
Yeah. I guess I want to hear what strong GM authority is, because I feel like I have it when I play Dungeon World, unless it's the idea that I can't act until the 6-.
That'd be interesting.
Like, maybe I get a turn or something.
It'd be curious.
Like I said, the thing that has my curiosity piqued about this is, one, I'm not sure exactly what problem they're solving, and two, I'm really interested to see how they're solving whatever problem it is that they have.
I mean, based on the core of this game, the book is 130 pages. I'm kind of curious as to what's inside of it.
Uh-huh.
Like,
I
what
mean,
do they talk about for 130 pages if there's no character classes and there's no...
Yeah.
There's no... The mechanics are that simple. Like, I'm sure there's only, like... I'm sure the mechanics of the game are like 10 pages, maybe.
I mean, I like player-defined traits. I think that's neat.
Yeah.
Linear shallow power curve.
So the power curve is just add traits.
Yeah.
So you have more traits that you can
But
use.
you can only get up to a +3 anyway, so
Yeah.
you're never getting any higher than that.
But it gives you more flexibility for where you can apply your traits, right?
Yeah.
Depending on... So that's the thing I'm interested in seeing, like, the traits, right? Like, how broad can the traits be?
So it looks like the traits, there are 5 starting traits to define your
Yeah,
character.
there are.
Approach,
Uh-huh.
the way you solve conflict. Gimmick, a memorable or noteworthy quirk. Background, what you used to do or be. Foreground, your current skill set or field.
Uh-huh.
And weakness, something you struggle with. Which is weakness, I think, better are the tags that get you the -1.
Negatives, yeah.
Okay. So you build up, you build them up, right? Like, I have an approach, so I have approach that matches this problem. That's a +1.
It's the Numenera thing.
Yeah.
Where you're like, here's an asset, here's an asset. It's the
Yep. I mean, your sequence has this
Yes.
as well.
People don't know that game as well, so I'm
No,
trying to use,
I get it.
Yeah.
I get it. Yep. And so you create more tags as you level up, is what they say. So these new traits don't have to fall into one of the 5 starting categories. They can be other things. Again, you're only going to cap out at 3 anyway.
Yeah, but that, like I said,
But
that gives you
it
more
broadens the things
your
you could get.
things.
Yeah. So in fact, actually, what you don't want to do is you don't want to, like you would in a traditional OSR game or in like Dungeon World, you don't actually want to get more of the same. As you get more tags, you want to broaden out.
Hence why they have that shallow, broad
Shallow, broad
power curve.
Yep. I don't know. It's interesting. It's interesting. It looks. I mean, the artwork looks great.
Yeah.
I didn't go look at the levels yet. I'm gonna go look at what the backer levels are.
I like. There's only one level. $10.
I like that.
$10 gets you the PDF and a code if you want the print-on-demand version.
I'm okay. You know what I
You
like.
basically printed at cost.
You know what I like about that? This is a project that's not trying to overreach.
No, not at all.
It's got a really low ask.
I love everything about it. Basically, it needs 400 backers to succeed.
Yeah, it's got it's got a low ask. It's got I mean, an easily deliverable goal. And it's clear that they spent some money on artwork already, some preliminary artwork. I like the preliminary artwork. I think,
and they're in the middle of layout right now.
yeah, this
It's a cool little project. I like it a lot.
If I don't back it as the Kickstarter,
I'm getting it when it
odds
comes out
are
on
I'm buying it on.
drive-thru. Yeah.
Odds are I'm buying it when it gets onto drive-through.
I mean,
just to see what
we
this
are always
is.
curious as designers to see what they're doing, especially
Yeah,
with PBTA.
I
because
wanna
of what
see
we
it.
Design. Yeah.
But I will say, like, it didn't, like, when I saw it come across my feed, I wasn't like, holy shit, I have to have this game. Like, because I can't figure out what it's solving for me, right? Like, when I saw Tales from the Loop, I was like, holy shit, I have to have this game. Although I think I was overextended on Kickstarters or cons, and I didn't back the Kickstarter, but I immediately bought the PDF because I knew what it was solving for me, right? Like, it was solving kids on bikes, solving weird mysteries, and for me even better because it was solving 80s mysteries. Yeah. Anyway, interesting.
It is interesting.
It is interesting. All right. Do the next one, which I'm sure is going to chew up some time.
Here we
JJ's
go. JJ Lanza, bad gaming or no gaming at all?
Oof, you got to define this.
Yeah, I'll just let me
Define this because my answer has a lot to do
Give me
with the confines of this
Give
discussion.
me a second to open it up and read it. I thought it was open, but I closed it accidentally. Sorry about that. So, this question comes from a recent personal experience that JJ had. For the purposes of this discussion, bad gaming is defined as not the style, type, flavor of gaming you are looking for. If you are a serious gamer, your bad gaming is silly and nonsensical. If you are a silly and nonsensical gamer, your gaming
Super
is way too serious. Please explain your choice. So
this one's hard for me.
it's not hard for me.
No, I know, because you're going to take a very decisive thing. I'm gonna be a bit more nuanced about it, but
I'm going to assume that you can't change the group, that you can't modify the play style.
Yep.
That it's just the way it is.
yes.
Now, I will probably play with that group for a period of time, because I can deal with certain kinds of play every once in a while. But eventually, I'm just going to stop because I have better things to do with my time than playing bad games that I'm not having fun at.
Yeah, here's the thing where I run into a problem. I have not gamed, not played, since I was 10. There's not a time where I gave up this hobby. So I don't know if I could simply say, I just would stop gaming. Because I'll be honest, I don't know what the fuck I would do if I wasn't gaming.
Yeah, I didn't game for 2.5 years in high school.
Right. And you took a gap.
I took a gap before I hooked up with you, and we were
right, 20-something years ago.
Yeah.
So that's where I wrestle with this one. I wrestle with this one because if I was for instance, the game. So for me, bad gaming, right? I'm a story gamer, so playing Pathfinder would be the game that I would not a Pathfinder style game would be the game that's not my style.
You would get stuck playing a game like that, and then there wouldn't be any storytelling within the game. It would mostly be miniatures combat.
And here's the thing, as a gamer over 30-something years, I've played a lot of different styles, right? My style has changed and grown over the years. I think that I probably would adapt to it.
Probably.
If I can't change the group, I probably would learn to change. Mm-hmm. Now, that's assuming that the group aren't assholes. If the group's assholes, then I'm just not playing.
Yeah, I'm going to assume that the players are fine. That wasn't the conversation that wasn't the question that was posed. It was just that it's not the play style that you prefer.
If I love these guys and gals, if I'm Chris, right? If I love the people who are playing the game and I'm just not fond of the game, I still can get something out of that. But for me to quit cold turkey, I'll be honest, I don't know if I can do it. I don't know. Now, let me tell you what I think in real life would happen.
Can you take that thing about the breakout community thing? Go ahead, thanks.
In real life, I would play with this group.
Yep.
And I would do the same thing Chris would do, is I would play with this group, and then in 3 months, I would subvert the fuck out of this group, take it over, and run my own shit.
That is what... So in reality, if that's what would happen.
Right, because in reality, I would sit down and play and be like, this game's bad.
Because in reality, I've done it 3 times in my life.
I've done it as well, right? So in reality, I'd be like, this game's bad. I'm going to keep playing, and then I'm going to wait for an opening, and I'm going to offer to run a game. And then I'm going to run Pathfinder, but I'm going to run Pathfinder with story and drama. And then after they love that, then I'm going to come around, and I'm going to show them a different game that has story and drama, and then we'll be back to playing my shit.
You forget that we kind of lived this already.
I know.
We had that group.
I know.
We kept trying to find a game that would make everybody happy, and you and I were not happy.
Sup, y'all?
Yes. I mean, we weren't. That group had to end.
That group had to end.
That group had to end because we reached such an impasse that it was literally your side or my side. And at that point, it wasn't bad gaming. It was problematic. It was a group. It was a people problem within the group.
Yeah, that was a huge part of it.
And that was a thing that I got to go.
Yeah.
That is when do you break up with your gaming group? That's when you break up with your gaming group.
Yeah. Then we played Dungeon World. It was fine.
Yeah, which is funny because we played Dungeon World in that other group.
And it was fun.
And then it was there was an insistence to play harder, crunchier.
I want crunch.
Which is okay. I don't have a problem with that, except
crunch,
that I don't like crunch. For the most part. I mean, also
like-
played D&D.
I mean, I like games, so I mean, I like games that are a little bit more
Well,
complicated too sometimes.
My taste in games has obviously changed over the years. I've played crunchier stuff over. I mean,
Yeah.
I've played lighter stuff. I mean, what I like is a function of where I am in my life at a certain time. Because if I have ample time to do nothing but work on games, then I would of course play crunchier games because I, like you, like different systems.
Yeah.
But I'm actually strapped for a lot of time, so give me 96 pages of rules that have almost no supplements, and I'll just run that until I, run out of arcs, and I'll go play something else.
96 pages of rules?
Or
Like-
less.
Like, do it with 12 at this point in our lives.
Yeah, seriously.
I mean, I also like run Knights Black Agents too, so I mean...
I loved Knights Black Agents. There was significantly more work to put that game together each week.
And Blades in the Dark, significantly more work to put that game together, at least to learn that game.
Mm-hmm. Jerry's asking me, would I play Crunch in a heavy story game? So let me put it to you this way. As a player, I am more tolerant to play a crunchy game than to GM one. As a GM, because my time is so limited, I want something lighter that I can run.
You need to put a pin in a thing, Bob. Like, we need to talk about crunch and the different kinds of crunch and how they affect...
Oh my
Ding.
God.
And how
what
they
a
affect
great
design.
What a great topic.
Because there's a difference between like preparing my encounters because NPCs and monsters and whatnot require like X amount of work versus like, to prep my mystery requires X amount of work to prep my heist game requires X amount of work because it requires these bits and pieces mechanically.
Versus, this game is mechanically complex.
Correct. Like Blades in the Dark. Blades in the Dark is mechanically complex, but once you understand the mechanics, it sounds like that game runs pretty smoothly and quickly with not very much prep.
Oh, absolutely. The prep side is super low.
Okay, so crunch, prep versus mechanics.
Where's your crunch?
Yeah,
Right.
where's your crunch?
Yeah. You're right, because Blades had a steep learning curve. But once you achieve some level of mechanical mastery, like I was able to run that game pretty flexibly.
I listened to you talk about it. Like your prep was like a half a page of notes.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And really all it was interesting dialogue for the first phase. And then nothing like for everything else and let the game do the work. But something like Hero System, Palladium's a good one. Something like Palladium where it's mechanically crunchy, like it's got complex rules, it's got lots of numbers, tons of skills and stuff like that.
All right.
That's a harder game for me to run.
So we have it. We have that topic at some point.
Yeah. Thanks, JJ. That not only came up with an interesting discussion, and as I understand, the G Plus discussion's pretty lengthy on that as well.
It is. It'll probably end up being episode 299.
Where's your crunch?
Yeah.
Captain Crunch.
Captain Crunch. All right, well, let's do some Patreon shoutouts before we get out of here. Michael Dinos, Ben Wilson, Brandon Barnes, Blake Ryan Batman, Zach Goins, and Colin Brook. Thank you so much for being our patrons. We greatly appreciate that.
Thank you very much.
You are all amazing people. Is there anything in the chat room, or should we get out of here?
Yeah, actually, just want to run this by real quick. Jared posted the quote, I guess, from Gygax.
Yep.
2 to 3 hours per hour of play is generally what the dungeon master has to prepare with. He sits down and draws out the dungeon maps, or it could be a village that he's going through trying to find someone. There's no question that one of the reasons, as I was mentioning earlier, the young people play more than older people do is because they have more time.
And then games evolved.
Yep.
Yeah.
For this very reason. Otherwise, only young people would play role-playing games, and us old folks would be playing different things because we would not have the time. Good God, 2 to 3 hours per hour of play.
That's you back in the day.
Back in the day, yep.
It was. It definitely was.
I was like, can I do an hour for every 4?
Right. I mean, I
Hour of
usually
prep
do
for every
about
4 hours
about
of play.
4 hours for 8. Because I write about a session's worth of material and it takes me 2 sessions to run it. Yeah. So I'm about a half hour for hour.
I mean, of course, like if anybody's ever heard me talk, like foundational preps and things, so I will spend 4 to 10 hours getting my stuff together for my game.
And then just and then just building a little off of that each.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
All right. Well, with that, thank you everyone so much for listening.
If you are free Tuesday evenings at 8:45 p.m., 6:45 p.m. the Queen's time, come join us live on Twitch where you can chat with other listeners in the ever awesome Chat Room for Life. And as always, ask us questions, or at least say something interesting that we'll pick up and put on the show.
If you cannot make it to the live show, check out our podcast each week wherever you get your podcasts, and take a listen to some of the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, such as Down with D&D, Advantage to Insight, Panda's Talking Games, Cypher Speak with Darcy and Troy, the Gnome Cast, the Wednesday Evening Podcast All-Stars, Zhang Yu Hustle, and Hobbs and Friends of the OSR. You can and should also check out some of our brother and sister podcasts, She's a Super Geek, The Knights of the Night, and the always amazing Gaming and BS, who just talked about adversarial GMing.
Then, after you have trimmed up your skill list, leave us some feedback. You can reach us via email directly. Chris at misdirectedmark.com.
That's me.
Phil at misdirectedmark.com.
He's over there.
Or Bob at misdirectedmark.com.
Oh, yeah.
Check out our Facebook group. Hit us up on Twitter. The show and network is at misdirectedmark.
Oh, yes.
I am at DNA Phil. That is Robert M. Everson. And as always, pumping out more jazz than you can possibly stand.
Only if you ask for it.
Only if you ask for
The
it.
Light 101.
The Light. And then, of course, please go to the core, not Fate core, but the Misdirected Mark core of our social media empire, the G Plus community, which is like all signal, no static.
That's right.
There you go. Hey, and if you like what we do here and on the other shows in the Misdirected Mark Network, you can support our Patreon campaign at patreon.com/MMP. Patrons get access to the after show, pre-production show notes, musical parodies, the Pandas Talking Games, bonus outtakes, and other special releases.
This has been a Misdirected Mark production, which is the media arm of Encoded Designs. A mic drop.
We out!